Into that? Okay, thank you. So we're here tonight to sign a historic piece of legislation, Senate Bill 5, and we believe it restores balance in the state between those who are out there working that are not working for the government, vis-a-vis our government employees. The most important part of this bill is that it gives our local governments the flexibility and the tools they need to control costs. Costs that have been rapidly escalating. Costs that, frankly, increasing at a rate they're not sustainable. So this is an effort to say that we will provide a balance between those folks who are government employees versus those folks in the private sector who have another set of benefits, and we really wanted to balance them out here. But let me be clear about a couple things. This bill, Senate Bill 5, does not cut anybody's salary. This bill, Senate Bill 5, does not take away anybody's pension. This bill, Senate Bill 5, does not destroy anybody's health care. And anybody that's been out there saying that is just factually wrong. This is an effort to provide balance. When your average private sector worker in the state of Ohio pays 23% of their health care costs, of their own health care costs, and when a city worker, the average city worker in Ohio pays 9%, this is frankly an effort to try to restore the balance. And it really won't even mean that the government worker, in all likelihood, will even pay what the private sector is able to pay. Now, the taxpayers of this state and the private sector, they've had a tough slog of it. Many of them have seen their 401ks obliterated. They've seen the match of their 401ks, in some cases, either reduced, and I guess in some cases, probably eliminated. They've seen their health care costs go up, and their benefits have not kept pace. And we have over 9% of our Ohioans who are out of work. You know, this is not an effort to punish anybody. This is an effort, again, to restore balance and to be able to remove the burden from our local communities who find themselves in a position of having to raise taxes and which ultimately drives companies out of their community. And remember, this is nothing more than a piece of a reform agenda that will help local governments, local governmental entities be able to deal with fewer resources and put them in a position in keeping their costs down where they can attract jobs and businesses. This state over the last 10 years has lost more jobs than every state in America except for Michigan and California. This is all part of a growth agenda that will improve the lives of all of our families, whether they are the families of government workers or whether they are the families of private sector workers. Ohio must get back to a growth pattern so that risk-taking is rewarded, so that jobs can be created, so we can reduce homelessness, reduce poverty, reduce our unemployment, and get people working again and restore the vibrancy of Ohio and preserve Ohio's legacy. I believe these tools will absolutely help our local government officials be able to cope with a scenario that, frankly, is not sustainable. And also, of course, to deal with the fact that there are fewer resources available. So this is not particularly a happy day. This is just one more step in a march to make sure that we can save Ohio. I'm very proud of the members of the legislature. They've been my partners since the day that I was inaugurated as the governor. We are trying to put the tools together in the toolbox that will allow us to compete. We've moved to privatize the Department of Development and create Jobs Ohio. Just the other day, we passed a robust transportation bill that allows us to be able to have public-private partnerships so we can do, in fact, more infrastructure with reduced risk and with less resources. We've been able to pass the common sense initiative so we can begin to repeal rules and regulations, which we've already started to do, that makes it easier for businesses to be successful. And now we're on the precipice of considering a budget that will eliminate a structural deficit that will preserve a tax cut, put us in a growth position so that Ohio can be strong again. Let me first recognize the President of the Ohio Senate, my partner, Tom Niehaus.
Thank you, Governor. Well, this certainly is a good day for Ohio, but I would echo the Governor's sentiment that this is not a day to celebrate, but a day to recognize that this is a first step in what is going to be a difficult road and the first of very many difficult decisions that we're going to face as we balance the budget and try to dig out from the $8 billion hole that we were left with. So the bill that we passed is a reasonable approach to give local governments the additional tools they need to do what working families do every day, and that is to match their expenses with their income. And now they will have the ability to do that and develop a sustainable budget that will serve the taxpayers in the long run. It also creates the transparency that taxpayers need to know that their hard-earned tax dollars are being used wisely and frugally. And so I'm very proud to have been involved in this process. I want to say thank you to the members of my caucus. I think it's important to point out that on 2 separate occasions, prior to even beginning debate on Senate Bill 5, members of our caucus said in December that collective bargaining reform was essential. In January, at a retreat, they said collective bargaining reform is essential and it needs to be one of our top 5 priority bills. Hence the name Senate Bill 5. And then when it came time for the difficult vote, 17 of our members stepped up and said, this is the right thing to do. We are going to help protect Ohio taxpayers. We are going to give local governments the tools they need to balance their budgets in a reasonable and responsible way. I especially want to thank and congratulate Senator Shannon Jones for her strong leadership on this issue, a very difficult issue and a very contentious issue. And also the work of my chairman, Senator Bacon, and my friend and chairman in the House, Joe Uecker. They showed remarkable leadership in guiding us through this process, and I look forward to the implementation of Senate Bill 5 so that all taxpayers will understand that now their local governments will do exactly what they do every day, and that is to balance their budgets based on their income and their expenses.
One other thing, obviously, this bill does is eliminate binding arbitration. That's a system whereby people from the outside come in and impose a settlement on our communities that our communities at times cannot afford. And even the threat of binding arbitration is a threat that's forced our communities to make some decisions that don't make sense. Our governmental workers are going to be treated like all other workers. Their pay is going to be based on performance. We think that will lead to greater efficiency. We think that will lead to greater excellence in our local communities. Now I'd like to turn to the Speaker of Ohio House Bill Batchelder.
Thank you, Governor. This is a kind of an amazing evening in some ways for those of us who served here in 1983 when the original bill was passed. It went through the Senate in one heck of a hurry. It got to the House and was held up for a while. I thought perhaps there was going to be an effort to change some of the language because it was so overreaching. Tonight we know that when this bill takes effect, the people of this state will be treated equally. We have always had a pattern in the past of providing special benefits for public employees which are appropriate, because at one time they weren't paid the amount of money that the private sector workers were. Now they are paid more. And so as we look at this pattern that has emerged, and most particularly as we look at the compensation levels, it's a fair situation. When you have a lady working in McDonald's who doesn't really have much to take home for her kids, to tax her to subsidize those who are paid a great deal more and given better benefits, it's not fair. This bill is about fairness. This bill in the private sector could never have come to pass, but only in the public sector, where certain elements have great control and power. And so tonight, we are looking at a piece of legislation that quite simply makes things fair. That's an Ohio heritage. That's part of how we live. And I think it's something that will give inspiration to many people who work long hours for very little pay, almost no benefits. Now they know that they're just as important in Ohio as people who work for the government. I appreciate your mentioning our two, this for some reason, there were a lot of people who were warmed up about this exercise of drafting and so forth. Kevin, would you stand, and Joe, would you stand? These chairmen operated in the best tradition of the judiciary. They kept their cool, they took the testimony in a very constructive way, and as the leader of a house, I can tell you that you really need those chairmen. What they do is fantastic. And I also want to recognize Louis. Are you going to? Oh, yeah. Oh, stand back. That's okay. Yeah, I have to tell you that a lot of members came here to save Ohio, to bring change, to put politics last and improving the lives of our families and our children first. Tom Niehaus and Bill Batchelder, without their leadership, we wouldn't have moved an entire host of things, with still a heck of a lot more yet to go in a relatively short period of time. A friend of mine, known her for a while. She is the sponsor of Senate Bill 5, Shannon Jones.
Thank you, Governor. I don't have much to add, but I think a handful of thank yous are definitely in order and appropriate, so you just indulge me. First, I want to thank my family. Any of you who have been around in the legislative process for a long time know that our families takes a significant toll, and this bill has been tough on my family, but they are united in a common purpose with me and the Senate President, the Speaker of the House, and the Governor of the state to bring Ohio back to prosperity. And so I thank them for their continued and unwavering commitment to me and to this great state. I certainly want to thank the Senate President. Without his resolve and leadership, I would not have been able to do the things that we needed to do to advance this piece of legislation. The entire leadership team of the Senate, certainly Chairman Bacon, who was a rock to me and to the leadership team, and all of the members who stood with us. Certainly, I'd like to thank as well the Speaker of the House and his support, as well as the Speaker Pro Tem, Lou Blessing, for some really amazing, smart work, and really contributed a lot to making Senate Bill 5 a better piece of legislation. And obviously, Governor Kasich for his unwavering commitment to put Ohio on the path to prosperity. But mostly, I'd like to thank all of those brave constituents all across Ohio, really dedicated and committed public servants who are trying to serve the needs of their constituents, who are willing to come here to their state capital under some difficult circumstances to share their story with us about how they need the flexibility to turn their communities around. The stories that we heard about potential mass layoffs were really gut-wrenching, and these folks deserve the flexibility to save the jobs in their cities and in their school districts and in their counties, and to save the services that taxpayers have become accustomed. With those thanks, Mr. Governor, thank you for your resolve, and look forward to maybe what's to come. Thank you.
Well, we ain't seen nothing yet. Gotta go. You know, in every team, there's always people that you know, kind of rise up and make sure they get a hit. I don't know what the Reds won today. I don't know who the big hero was, but one of the people that was integral to the ability to explain this bill or rally the membership is my friend. I've known him for an awful long time, Lou Blessing.
Thank you, Governor. By the way, Ramon Hernandez hit a walk-off. My Cincinnati Reds.
I think you hit a walk-off yesterday, didn't you?
Very good. I want to thank Shannon Jones, first of all, to have the courage, and I'll tell you, it took a lot of courage to introduce a bill like that. The Speaker and the President were spectacular. The Chairman, talk about cool, calm, and collected. That was impressive. But Governor, I'll tell you something. I've never worked with a governor that would say, well, let's do this, without considering the political consequences. I mean, if this governor thinks it's the right thing to do, he does it. It's wonderful working with him. Briefly on the bill, this bill brings transparency. The people are going to want to know what their elected officials and their public employees are working on. The people will actually have a say if something's really out of whack with a vote. So what's going to happen is these contracts are going to compress. They're going to get far more reasonable, and frankly, I think it's going to take a lot of the fighting away, and we're going to do a lot better with this bill. Thank you.
And, you know, keep mentioning the committee chairman. You know, I was here, I think the first day of the hearing, I came down, and there's Kevin Bacon and Under Siege. And Kevin, you really were a professional. Really a great professional. Joe, you had the hearings, you let everybody have their say, you were, you know, again, a total pro. And, you know, the change is hard. I mean, we all know that. Change is very difficult. But at the end of the day, this change is going to give us control at the local level. Frankly, I know you say it isn't sustainable for the taxpayers, but frankly, the rising salaries and the rising pension pickup really ultimately threatens this pension system. And if there's anything we want to do, it's to preserve the pension system. You know, I was in Washington when they wanted to dump the PERS and OPERS into Social Security. I said, over my dead body, you're not going to do it because we take care of our systems. And there'll be changes coming to our pension systems that are designed to strengthen them. So you don't go through a position of where you can't pay out, which you had been promised. So I want to compliment the two of you, and of course, again, the leaders and Shannon, and we'll sign this bill. And if you would like to come up here and be part of this, that'd be great. Oh, you know what, before I do it, I've got to thank, I do have to thank Matt Carl, I have to thank Jay and Beth and my whole team, but I think, you know, between Troy and Chad and Matt, I mean, and there's a whole series, and every time you do it, you leave somebody out, but the staff worked extremely hard to get the language right, extremely hard in terms of explaining things to members. I don't know who I left out, Speaker or Tom, but it's a great team of people, and we've developed a real bond of friendship and a commitment. So I want to thank all the staff, and for those that I left out, we'll get you the next time. Senate Bill 5 is now law. Take a few questions.